Okay, good afternoon and welcome to the Real Me, Chapter 30. This is titled Raising Children. I read through this chapter this morning and I was shocked that it's actually part of this book. I mean, the reason it's part of this book is how he ends off the chapter, because he says this chapter is really an introduction to the next chapter, chapter 31, which deals with the mitzvah of chinuch, of educating your children about the Torah and the mitzvos. This chapter really has no place in a Jewish book. This chapter could be written in any psychology book or any educational book, Jewish, not Jewish. It talks about raising your children. Basically, the premise of the chapter is that, of course, parents are expected to provide nourishment and physical needs that their children need: food, clothing, etc. Medical care for their kids. What's not such a given is that all kids, just like adults, need a lot of emotional investment. You have to invest a lot emotionally in your children, and your children have to be given love and also self-worth. You have to provide for your children's self-worth, encouragement, tell them they're really worth something. You have to treat them, he says, like an adult. He says you treat your children like an adult, just like an adult. Self-worth, respect is so important to them. To a young kid, 3-year-old kid, it's important also. Over, when was it? Was it Yom Kippur? Just had Yom Kippur. My son, he's not even 2 years old. He's almost going to be 2 years old. Uh, he saw me. I wasn't home much of Yom Kippur because I was in shul davening for 8 hours. Whatever, however long they daven. But I came home in the afternoon for a little break. And my son was there. And he goes and he sort of like, goes like this. Like, I didn't know. I never saw that from my son before, I realized he wanted some attention. He hadn't seen me in a long time. He wanted some attention. He normally has a smile on his face, but he was looking at me like he was downtrodden, like he was having a tough day. I mean, he's having a 1.5-year-old kid having a tough day. But I realized that what the author is saying over here is obviously true. Kids need attention, especially maybe even more than older people. They need constant attention. I find this very challenging myself. I have 4 kids. B'li and Hara. 4 kids. They're all about a year and a half apart, or less than a year and a half apart. My oldest is 4, my youngest 8 months, and they're constantly fighting for my time and attention, my wife's time and attention. Certain kids, the oldest gets more attention, the youngest gets a lot of attention. My son, who's the third one, and I have 3 daughters and a son. My son gets attention. He's the only boy. Usually, I feel bad for my second oldest child, and the girl. She gets left out, I think, the most. I feel bad for. I try to give her attention. But what the author's saying over here is that it's true. Is that you have to give a lot of attention to your kids. You have to make them feel loved. You have to make them feel worth something. He said, loving the child, a basic obligation. He does bring some chazals, from Mishle, he says, Tov aruchas yarek v'avabo mishar avos v'sinabo. It's better a meal of vegetables with love than a fattened bowl with hatred. Even if you can only afford to feed your children vegetables, at least give it them with love. He brings again from Devarim, Rashi in Devarim, Oreacha asher kanafshecha. Your friend is like your life. Rashi explains that avicha, this is your father. It means the maximum love between 2 men is found between a father and son. So he even mentions something interesting. He says that in earlier times, people were less stressed and generally happier overall. Is this true? I don't know. Nowadays, everyone's depressed. I think just didn't diagnose depression. Of course, people were sad earlier. I don't think at times would change. In those times, love of parents for their children was so obvious. There was no need to discuss it. This explains what I say for Mishle, which talks so much about chinuch, doesn't mention the duty of the parent to love the child. It's the same reason why no one says we must breathe and eat. I mean, it's hard. He says Mishle doesn't talk about that, except for the fact that he quoted Mishle on the previous page, that it said he's supposed to give vegetables with love. So I don't know what he's saying. I don't buy this thing that earlier times were better, everything was better, people were happier then. No, people just didn't diagnose things. You think they had dentists 1,000 years ago? They didn't have dentists. They just took out the teeth. I mean, technology has made things better, and it's made things worse. I think, the human psyche is the same as it always was. I don't think, it was always better back then, It's like I don't think people were smarter necessarily back then. It was just different wisdom. They knew different things. They knew less. we know a lot more nowadays. So if anything, we're smarter than the earlier generations. That's what I have to say, because we know more. We're able to study it better. We have better appliances, better technology to study things better. But I do agree, obviously, with the notion he's saying over here. Now, I just want to add, from a personal perspective, my 2 cents about raising children. Now, obviously, when you talk about emotions, emotions start to build up from a young age, but they become more prominent during adolescence, and teenagers. I am not the father of a teenager. My oldest kid is 4 year old, 4 years old. I'm not even, I'm not. I've never even had a 6, 7 year old kid. I know I'm going to quote a Gemara. We're learning Ksubos, where because I struggle with this on a daily basis. In terms of raising your kids, he doesn't talk about this, but this really should talk about it. Maybe he talks about the next chapter about teaching them mitzvos. But whenever you want to raise your children, you want them to listen to you. You need your kids to listen to you, because a lot of times they do dangerous things. They put themselves in dangerous situations. They're not smart enough to know to keep themselves out of danger. A lot of times they get on your nerves. A lot of times they, break down your boundaries. That you need time without your kids. You can't be with your kids 24/7. It'll drive you crazy. So you have to put them to sleep at a certain time. You have to set certain rules they can do. You can't give them whatever food they wish, whatever snacks. Things have to be a treat. Things have to be a necessity to give them. You can't let a kid be a king over you. You have to put them in their place, because after all, they are kids. The Gemara in Ksuvos does address. I know I've heard so many different approaches to this. I mean, it boils down really to three options. Really, only three options how to navigate this with your kid. One option is, what I think is the worst option, to bribe your kid. You want a kid to do something, you bribe it. If you do this, I'll give you a chocolate. That's making your kid a king over you. Then there's the threatening method, which I used to use a lot. If you don't do this, you get a punishment. No, you have to back it up once in a while with a punishment. The minute nowadays, people don't hit kids. They, you put them in their room for a minute or two. They cry, but eventually, a couple of months ago, my daughter threatened me back. She said, I don't like that she goes to sleep in the afternoon, because then she stays up late at night. She said, if you don't give me an Oreo cookie, she likes the Oreo cookies. I don't give her my Oreo cookies. You don't give me an Oreo cookie, I'm going to sleep now in the afternoon. And then at that point, I'm like, whoa, she's threatening me. It's not working. So, but then I read the Gemara in Ksubos. We're doing Masechus Ksubos and Daf Yomi, and it actually speaks about this. Now, the Rishonim say the Gemara is referring to as teaching Torah, but I think it's just really relevant in terms of raising your children. It says, until the age of 6, be makabel, meaning there's only a limit to how much people can makabel, but basically don't say anything, be quiet. Kids are jumping on the table, kids are making a mess. You let them make the mess. You clean it up afterwards. You can't berate them, you can't threaten them, it's not going to help. From 6 to 12, the Gemara says, at that point, you're mafatim la ketura. Basically, they ask for Oreos. You give them, here, take 100 Oreos. It's like embarrassing them. You want a toy? Here, take all the toys and leave them, by themselves. They really want the attention. That's when they're asking for certain thing. A lot of times they're not asking for that thing directly. They're asking for the attention that you show love by giving them what they want. So you say, here, take 100 of them, and you remove that love from the thing. That really gets to them. It's sort of embarrassing them a little bit, but that's the age that embarrassing them works. Once they reach the age of 12, adolescence, so at that point, the only thing that works, the Gemara says, Yored lehem lechayev, or something like that. The Gemara says, go down to their living, meaning you sanction them financially. If they have an allowance, you take it away. If they want good food, good clothes, you take that away from them. Now, I don't have any experience. I can't tell you if this works or not, but I can tell you what, at least from 0 to 6, I think the Eitzah of the Gemara is a really good Eitzah. From 0 to 6, shut your mouth and let them do whatever the heck they want. And, obviously you have to discipline them when they're, causing problems to other people's kids or to other people's property. You have to try to intervene as much as you can. And it's not possible to do this 100% because everyone gets angry, everyone gets stressed out by their kids, and your kids will drive you crazy. But the best option is just, if you can, whatever you can, just accept it, clean up their mess afterwards. You can't rationalize with kids that are 0 to 6 years old. 6 to 12, and 12 to plus, I can't tell you about, but that's what I think the Gemara says. I will tell you one other thought that I have about raising kids is that he brings this Rashi, Oreacha asher kenafshecha ze avicha. There's always a discussion I read, how should it be with your kids? Should you be their friend or you should be their parent? A parent is not a friend, or a parent should be their friend. You know, should you be the friend of your child? So to this, I'd like to say that yes and no, meaning yes, technically you should be a friend to your children. Um, However, the way that you show that you're a parent is not by punishing them. It's not by showing them that I'm older than you, I can control you. That's not the way of showing your importance over them. And you know, they're supposed to give you respect. It's not your mitzvah to make sure your kids give you respect. That's their mitzvah. If they want to Makayim the mitzvah, if they're a rebellious kid, they're not going to be Makayim the mitzvah. Nothing you can do about it. And every kid has their own nature. Chanal chanar al pi darko. I don't think it means al pi darko. Everyone in the same yeshiva, in the same yeshiva katan, in the same yeshiva gedola, everyone learning in kola for the rest of life. That's not al pi darko. Al pi darko means the talents, the strengths of that kid. You should invest in that and help them nurture those talents. That's my pet peeve with Haredi culture. But I think it's really important that you show that you're the adult. When you buy things, I think you should have a limit. I mean, when you give things to your kids, you should know how much you give. Like when you pour a glass of Coke or whatever you're drinking for yourself, and you want your kid to ask for some. Now, some parents would only give it on Shabbos, whatever you want your policy is. Don't give them a half a cup, full cup. You give them their amount. I have 3-4-year-old kids. You give them a third of a cup. You don't treat them like an adult like that. You have to realize where they are. And the second piece of advice is that I think that you should not buy so many things for them. Your main kids should naturally look up to parents who act like adults and have normal social lives. You shouldn't, like, if you try to be friends with your kid, it's not. Maybe you try to be friends with anybody, it's not going to work like that. It's like, when you pick up your kid from Ghana, you say, "How was your day?" The kid's not going to answer. Of course, he's not going to answer. You have to ask more detailed questions. You say, what was for lunch today, or something like that. Something that interests them, or did you play with this girl, or something like that. They have to ask detailed questions. That's just in terms of having a normal social relationship with anybody, but you have to ask detailed questions. You don't say a generic question. That's very boring. But also, you should live your life for yourself. You come first, your wife comes second, and your kids come third. A lot of people will buy a swing set for their kids. I have a brother-in-law. He built a swing, a child swing. I said, hey, I'm not building a child. I'm not making a swing for my children. I bought an adult swing. I don't know if people know what that is, an adult swing. It's basically this, like, bench or whatever that, swings back and forth. And you know what? It's for me. I buy things for me. And you know what? Who uses it the most? The kids use it the most. Of course the kids use it the most because they're playing most of the time. So they use it. But it should always be that you come before your child. The parent should always lead. He should never be the follower. And you buy things for yourself. I just bought a little Tykes hoop, little basketball hoop. You know what? My son, I have 3 girls. My oldest girl maybe would if she was a boy, she would like it. My son is almost 2. He doesn't really know how to play. So I hope one day he'll be a good basketball player like me. But he doesn't know how to use it now. Why did I buy it? I bought it for myself. I love shooting around a little Tykes. I don't have a place to put a real basketball hoop. I love little Tykes hoop. I had it when I was younger. I still like it. I bought it for myself. You always buy things for yourself. And the kids will enjoy it also. But you be the leader. Always be the leader. Never be the follower. Don't try to bribe your kids. That's the worst thing. Buying them toys, whatever they want. Buy stuff for yourself. Set your house up in a way that's nice for yourself. I see parents all the time buying toy after toy for their kids. They ignore themselves. When you ignore yourself, the kid senses that. He says, hey, I'm the one important over here. My father's spending all the money on me, not on himself. So who's more important? Me. If the kid sees that you're spending all the money on yourself, right? He says, wait, he's important, right? And then and the second thing is that when you buy things for yourself, you enjoy those things yourself, and you create fun for yourself. In order to successfully raise children, I believe, not that I have any experience, but I think I have a little experience. I think kids really do look up to me, not just my own kids, but a lot of nieces and nephews. They really look up to me, and they like me. Is that because you know I'm just doing things for myself. I'm doing everything I do is for that I'm going to enjoy it. I'm not going to do things. Uh, Sometimes you have to give attention to your kids and things like that. But if you're gonna give attention, at least make it fun for yourself. Also, dance with them, have a great time. Don't just do things just for them. You have to do things for yourself. And ultimately, also, if you're a fun person and you create fun in your life and you like having fun, the kids will look up to you. A lot of kids, if you have social relations with other people, that's also important for your kids. Your kids say, "Wow, this guy, he's someone important. My father's important. He has social relations with other people. He's able to talk to other people." Kids love staring at their father when he's talking to other people, other men or other family members. He's speaking to them. They look up to you. They say, "Wow, my father's capable of having a social relationship with other people. He's someone I need to look up to." If you make yourself a person of value, you're a successful person. You should spend time with your kids, give them attention, give them love, tell them you love them, give them a lot of attention. But they have to know who's the father and who's the child. They should always know who the father and who's the child. Of course, you can treat them. You should be their friend. You should treat them like you're a friend. But they're going to treat you like a father if they see that you're an important person. If you're an important person, they realize they're a younger person. They're dependent on you for all their physical and emotional needs. If you're an important person, they'll always look up to you. When you're with them, when you're giving them attention, you treat them like a friend, have fun with them. But at the same time, they're only going to look up to you if you make yourself important. And when you make yourself an important person, they look up to you. They want to spend time with you. They'll love you. Or they want to run after you and hang out with you. And hang out with them, have a good time, have fun with. That's the point of kids. And what's the point of kids? The point of kids is to enjoy your kids, have a relationship with them, that to have them like your son should be your best friend, right? Your son should be your best friend, right? Because you have a closest relationship, a blood relationship. You created his existence in the world. He should be your best friend. Now he's not going to be your best friend when he's 4 years old, but maybe hopefully when he's 20, 25 years old, 30 years old, down the line, he could be your best friend because you'll be on the same intelligence level at that time. Maybe he's been married. He should be your best friend. You should treat him like friends. But in order to get him to be your friend, he first has to look up to you as a father, and then you can treat you as a friend. Hope you enjoyed today's lecture. I don't think it has anything to do with Judaism, but anyway, a little psychology for today. I did get a degree in psychology from Yeshiva University, so that's why I'm qualified to give this share. Hope you enjoyed. See you in the next one.